It's time for another edition of Fight News Now Extra. Thank you for tuning in, as this is where you get caught up on all of the news around the sport. John Ramsey and Robin Black and I will be chatting many topics, including the UFC's return to Japan later this year. An injured World Series of Fighting competitor is ready to return, and we'll hear from Kendall Grove. The UFC has announced that Josh Barnett and Roy Nelson will serve as coaches for the first Japanese version of The Ultimate Fighter, which will be promoted as Road to the UFC Japan. The series will air in Japan with 8 fighters training in both Japan and Las Vegas under the coaches and lead to a live event at the Saitama Super Arena on September the 27th, which will be headlined by Barnett and Nelson. This will be Barnett's first fight since UFC 168 in December 2013, where he was stopped by Travis Brown. MMAfighting.com reports that Tyrone Spong will return to action for World Series of Fighting on their August 1st event, but no opponent has been announced as of yet. Spong broke his leg during a fight for Glory over a year ago and has not competed since that time. He has also been featured on the current season of The Ultimate Fighter as a member of the Black Zillions team in a coaching capacity. The World Series of Fighting card on August 1st will feature Jake Shields taking on Husmar Palhares in the main event. And Bellator returns on Friday night with a card from Temecula, California, and is headlined by middleweight champion Brandon Halsey making the first defense of his championship against TUF Season 3 winner Kendall Grove. We recently had a chance to speak to the challenger about Friday night's fight, which airs on Spike TV.
I'm so experienced, and I'm not just saying that to be cocky. I fought the who's who. I fought better wrestlers. I fought better fighters, better stand-up guys. I won some, I lost some, and he doesn't know how to lose. He doesn't know how to face adversity, you know? And don't get me wrong, like, I hate the dude. I don't like him. We're fighting. That makes it even better. I get to punch him in the face. But I respect him. I respect he's 8-0. He's destroyed guys. But to me, I think he's just a one-trick pony, and nobody knows how to deal with that. And like I said, a one-trick pony, man. But he's good at that one trick. He's great. And he's getting better at jiu-jitsu. But no, Halsey's good. He's good, but I'm better.
Coming up Saturday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, Fight Network is your destination for our pre-fight show with John Ramsey and Robin Black and myself, and we will be joined by Ronda Rousey on the program, leading into the prelim fights from the Philippines with 4 fights airing here on Fight Network. And it's a day that ends with the letter Y. That means we're talking about fighting today. We heard from Kendall Grove there, which, man, you got to chat with at length back when we were in Montreal a couple of weeks back. He was there with Michael Bisping, and he gets set for Brandon Halsey on Friday night. And it's a card that we haven't talked too much about, but Bellator is back on Friday night. And with Kendall Grove, I think this is a fight that doesn't have a whole ton of interest, but I think with Brandon Halsey, the way he beat Alexander Shlemenko, he's somebody at least to watch, I feel, in Bellator as one of those people to be watching and see if they can emerge to that next level and break through their audience.
Yeah, and you would have to imagine that Bellator is hoping for that as well. Brandon Halsey, I think 9-0 right now as a mixed martial artist, and if he can manage another victory over a high-profile fighter like Kendall Grove, maybe the hardcore fans will start talking about him, and maybe Bellator will start pushing this guy. Because right now, the Bellator organization still feels like it was when Bjorn Rebney was running the promotion. We're not seeing the Scott Coker-esque type matchups yet, and of course maybe that's going to come with Ken Shamrock and Kimbo Slice.
Yeah, I do like this fight too. I mean, some people may not have, most people may not have been aware of what Kendall Grove's been doing, but we've had him on KSW here on Fight Network. The guy is super talented. People do know him. There's that golden age of fight fan that maybe is 35 right now, who was around during that tough era that really kind of cemented some fans to become lifelong fans. They know this guy, super talented. When you were talking to him, he was really passionate, still absolutely in love with what he's doing. Talked at length about how much Michael Bisping helped him. And he's somebody who, just by being around him and talking to him, I was excited to see him fight. We were excited to call his fights in KSW. This is a really good one, and just judging by how he spoke to you and how focused he was, I'm thinking do not underestimate him being the Bellator champion Monday morning.
I think, I've been saying this since the start of the year, that I thought 2015 was going to be a big year for Bellator, and I think we're still waiting to see what it's going to grow into. We saw they had that great show back in November, got a lot of interest because of Tito Ortiz and Stephan Bonner, but now it's an interesting environment with what is going to happen with the Reebok deal. When a fighter's contract comes due, Bellator becomes an interesting option for a lot of fighters, but as well, on top of that, UFC has the right to match any offer, and that doesn't include sponsorship dollars. So it becomes an interesting free agent environment for fighters.
Yeah, what I find interesting about the whole thing is that the baby steps that are being taken right now from Bellator, and maybe that's what they need to do. They have to kind of undo all the damage that the previous management, so to speak, has created. Now you have to move forward, and Coker has the experience to say, okay, these are things that work, these are things that didn't work. Obviously, sponsors are involved, Viacom's involved. So it's just, I think it's going to take time. And
you feel it's going to take stunt fights, though, like Kimbo Slice and Ken Shamrock? Because let's be honest, that's the Bellator fight most have focused on, as opposed to a quality middleweight in Brandon Halsey, who's coming off a great win. But let's be honest, this is not getting much interest at all this week going into Friday. But you know that Ken Shamrock and Kimbo Slice, as much as I'm not a fan of that fight, it's going to have tons of interest, I feel, that week.
It's true, and that's why you have Pitbull on the card as well, because you have to, it has to be the Trojan horse, so to speak. It's same with the Kendall Grove and Halsey fight coming up on Friday night. You also have Mike Richmond and Eduardo Dantas on the card, so you have to have those. For hardcore fans, you have to have those marquee matchups. Yes, the main event is there, Kimbo Slice and Ken Shamrock when that fight happens, but you have to have the undercard with real athletes that are from 2015. It's not just freak show fights. The real fans of MMA can say, yeah, it was great that I came here because of Ken Shamrock and Kimbo Slice, but I see the other guys on the undercard, and they're just as talented as the fighters in the UFC.
I think history is going to be very unfair to Bjorn Rebney, a man who built Bellator from absolutely nothing to the second biggest promotion in the world, and was ousted. Was he outed? He was ousted. He was ousted. And what happened, in my opinion, was when Viacom came in, a lot of the powerful people at Viacom have a lot of influence. When somebody big takes over, you know, what you're running or has their hands in the pie, they have a lot of influence. I kind of feel like that's happening with Scott Coker right now. I don't think we're going to ever necessarily see the Scott Coker Bellator, because there's large, powerful people at Viacom. I played music at one time. We were signed to EMI Publishing. We would work, us and a producer would work hundreds and hundreds of hours on a song, and a guy who ran the company who has no songwriting skills would go in and go, have you tried putting the chorus there? And it's like, well, if you had spent hundreds of hours here, you would know that's not possible. I feel like Viacom, big, powerful guys stroll into an office and go, hey, have you tried Kimbo Slice? You know, and that's what it feels like. And if that's the case, I don't think we'll ever really see.
You should have done an album based on tournaments. And you should have put an album out every single week.
Well, I mean, that's the landscape now. Maybe that's another Bellator issue, is they are not able to keep that trickle going to kind of hook people and keep them attached.
We've called him Stubborn Rebney. All right, for Robin Black, John Ramdeen, I'm John Pollock. More Fight News Now Extra, no more of my bloody jokes.